Welcome to Off the Coast, where we examine the views from Vancouver Island with your host, Rosemary Barnes. New and exciting things, preserved and respected things, business, recreation, politics, travel, all from the point of view of the people living and working on the island. Rosemary is a professional speaker and certified speaking coach living in historic Ladysmith and loving every day of the island life. Here is your Vancouver Island host, Rosemary.
Good afternoon and welcome to Off the Coast, Views from Vancouver Island. I'm your host, Rosemary Barnes, the Maverick voice at Confident Stages. Vancouver Island is a place rife with activity and amazing people, sights, places, and we have this incredible abundance of entrepreneurship here on this island. I don't know, of course, never having done a full market survey, but I am of the opinion that we have more entrepreneurs per capita on Vancouver Island than will be found on most other places. Today, I am so pleased to welcome one of these wonderful individuals to my show. Mr. Dirk Heydemann of HA Photography is meeting with us today. He is creative, he is professional, and he has an enormous amount of experience that he combines with a fun sense of humor and an energetic personality. This is what separates Dirk of HA Photography from countless other photographers. With over 20 years of professional photographic experience, Dirk of HA Photography has successfully organized and executed photo shoots for large national corporations, nonprofits, and local small businesses. His technical ability and communication skills have allowed him to work through countless challenges, resulting in images that successfully meet his clients' marketing and branding needs. Dirk's images have been published locally, nationally, and internationally in magazines, annual reports, books, billboards as far away as China. We are very pleased that Dirk could take time out of his schedule to be with us today. Welcome to the show, Dirk.
Hello, Rosemary. How are you?
I'm great today on sunny Vancouver Island. How about you? Everything's good?
Yeah, things are great. Thanks so very much. I'm thrilled to be here talking with you today and thrilled to be on the island. It's paradise for me.
It is for me too. Are you a born and bred islander, or are you an import like so many of us?
I was a misplaced islander. I was actually born in the prairies in Edmonton and was able to see a fair bit of Canada before finally resting my feet on this rock in 1980. So I've been here now for, 36 years or something to that effect?
Oh my goodness, so you were a mere babe in diapers when you got here.
You're too kind.
We come from the same hometown, Dirk. Did you know that?
I did not know that. No.
Yes. I'm an Edmonton import originally too.
There you go. Well, and Edmonton is lovely, but the island is much nicer. I think we're wiser for having come here.
It is indeed. Dirk, I think a little birdie told me that you were a finalist in the 2016 Business Achievement Awards for small businesses and professional services. Is that true?
Yes. In fact, I was nominated in 2 categories. And though there were many fabulous other folks, I was a finalist, but I didn't quite make the top. But that's okay. I think it was great just to be recognized by the Chamber of Commerce, and it was a lovely event. But it's been I was nominated again 2 years prior as well. So
in what category? In what category?
The last 2 was business under 12 as well as professional services.
Wow, what does that mean? Professional.
Professional services is just a category. So someone who does professional services like a lawyer, and photographers, those that are sort of, I'm not even exactly sure what the exact definition is, but I guess they had different categories, say, for restaurants and other type of services as well. So whoever nominated me felt that I was best fit for the professional services.
Isn't that great? What an honor to have people.
It was very humbling. Sorry to interrupt there.
No, it's fine. But how gratifying to know that people appreciate your work to the degree that they want to nominate you for an award. That must feel amazing.
It was, like I said, an honor and very humbling to have been recognized by my community. It felt very nice. Thank you.
Have you always been a photographer?
I have been taking pictures since grade 12. I took my first photography class. It was an extra class in the grade 12 program. And I've always had a camera close by my side, but it wasn't. It was 11 years ago that I actually started doing it full time. I had a business, always doing part time before then, while I had other sort of full time jobs. But I made the leap in whatever 11 years ago was, 2005. I should know that because it coincides with my daughter being born. I took a parental leave from the job that I was working at to look after my daughter full time, and decided at that time that I would not go back to work, but would make the dive into becoming a full-time professional photographer.
That's a risky thing with a family to take care of now, and let's go and create our own. Did you go right into your own business, or were you freelancing, or did you open HA Photography right then?
No, I had my business. Now it's probably been 18, 20 years now that I've had HA Photography, and like I say, I was just doing weekends and working around my sort of regular full-time work schedule to complete photo jobs, working for myself. But it was just, I had decided with my wife that we were in a position that I could look after my daughter and start to build my business on a full-time basis.
What a wonderful opportunity that was for you, to be able to build that relationship with your daughter and pursue a heart dream at the same time.
It really was. I really value the time that I had with my daughter during those formative years for her, to be able to have all that special time with her. And as well, what I discovered is that by putting more time and energy into my photography business, I could see the fruits of that labor. So it really does take sort of a diving in, a leap of faith, as you sort of had mentioned, to be able to do that. And I am so thankful that I had my wife Ronnie was so supportive of that. I'm sure we both had our doubts at times when things were slow, but we stuck through with it. And I'm really happy to say that our family is thriving, and my business is doing well, and it has paid off. So yeah, I'm very thankful for that.
Dirk, people love taking pictures, but there are pictures and then there are photographs. I am the kind that take the pictures, the ones that have the head half cut off, or a tree sticking out the top of someone's head. How do you, now you have to understand that I'm a complete rube, an absolute novice. I've never taken the opportunity to learn to see the way artists and photographers and very visual people see. Is that a talent? Is that a learned skill? Is that how do world famous photographers such as yourself create these photographs that are alive and vibrant as compared to mine that have someone's fingers stuck up their nose or something?
I think you should probably first of all give yourself a bit more credit. the wonderful, beautiful thing about photography is that it is such that anyone, and now with our iPhones and our smartphones being able to take pictures, we all have that ability now to capture creative and wonderful moments and some absolutely stunning moments. And I think that is just an absolutely wonderful creative outlet that so many people are able to take advantage of. In fact, photography is apparently the number one hobby in the world. And I think that's wonderful, and we all have this great appreciation for photography. It's the images that tend to capture us in magazines and on Facebook and on social media. They're very powerful, and I don't think that it necessarily takes a professional to capture a brilliant image. What I do think, though, is that when you're working for a client, you need to be able to produce that on a consistent level and on a consistent basis. You need to be able to know how to work with light and anticipate the problems or the challenges. As my shoemaker will say, don't call them problems, call them challenges.
As shoemaker says?
My shoemaker said that. I was just like, oh my God, that's the best thing I've heard in a long time. And I've quoted him many times. My shoemaker gave me this great advice, and I seem to I use that now. So anyways,
okay, wait a minute. You have a shoemaker?
Sorry, he's a shoemaker, but I guess he's also a shoe repair person. Sorry, I may have misquoted that.
You see, now I'm thinking now that I'm in the presence of absolute greatness to be speaking with a man who has his shoes made.
Well, I'm actually there is a friend of mine in town, John Shepard. Perhaps you know him, but he is a shoemaker, and we're actually in the midst of talking. I want to have some custom made shoes in exchange for some photos. So we're hoping to have that conversation soon. I think that would be great.
That's absolutely fantastic. Love it.
So okay. getting back to I think what separates the professionals from sort of the amateur, and not to say that amateurs can't be very talented or good, is being able to create those images on demand, understanding the challenges of light and shadow and composition, and being able to construct an image that works for your client. And I should say too, most of my work is commercial work, so working with companies. As opposed to, I do the occasional weddings, and I do actually a fair number of family portraits, but the majority of my work is for businesses. So I need to be able to, or a professional photographer needs to be able to produce those images for them on demand and provide them the messaging within that image that they need for their branding and marketing needs.
That's a complicated thing to ask for.
Well,
because images, the old adage of worth 1,000 words. Well, I think it's worth much more than 1,000 words. It's also illuminating the soul of a business.
Mm-hmm. I mean, images are very powerful, and we want to use them to communicate certain emotions or certain feelings, or we want to persuade people to use a certain service or buy a certain product. So we want to make sure that, if people are paying good money to hire a professional photographer, that that image is going to convey all that messaging for them, because otherwise they might as well just get someone who can take nice pictures for them, but it may not convey, it may not be able to convert that image into a proper message.
I have another question which you may or may not want to talk about, but I'm going to ask, and if you don't want to talk about it, just say, oh, and that reminds me of the time that I took a picture of an apple. The world of digital photography must have turned the photographic business on its ear in terms of pricing structures and how do you charge for digital images versus negatives as hard copy images. So, do you keep the digital image as part of your possession and your business, or do you sell not only the image but the digital copy of that at the same time? And how does the pricing structure relate? And did that transfer? How is that process going in the business world of photography?
Certainly, digital photography through the whole photography world, kind of upside down and on its head and up and inside out. It all of a sudden there was no sort of single source for a negative. Digital files could be copied and transferred. There was certainly certainly the advantages of digital photography have been great, and I think it was a challenge for photographers to kind of work through that structure of how do I charge for my work, where predominantly photographers always kept the the negatives, the film negatives, and would sell the prints. With digital copies being provided to the client, photographers had to work out a new system to be able to compensate for potential loss of income from having prints made. So I think every photographer has their own way of calculating that fee or working that out. I think my fee structure has been working. My accountant hasn't told me otherwise. So it is a learning process, and I think the challenge too is with digital photography and the ability to be able to see the image right away and make your adjustments without the cost of film, so to speak, has also given rise to countless of sort of hobbyist photographers sort of stepping into the kind of semi-pro world. And the challenge with that is that you have people who already have a full-time job and are receiving good income from that job, then selling their services for a dramatically low price because they're thinking, oh, this is great, I can make a couple $100 shooting a wedding or whatever, and it's just beer money for me, which is all fine and dandy, but that has it makes it more challenging for professional photographers who actually are trying to make their living doing this. It sort of degrades the what's the word I'm looking for? The career, the profession.
Yeah, the profession, yes.
And so I admit that I too sort of struggled with that, and I have found my ways of working around that. And I think also the client is now slowly beginning to recognize the difference between sort of a full-time profession and someone who is sort of what I call a weekend warrior, who will pull out their fancy camera and take some images. I think we're starting to see it slowly come around again, where people are understanding that the professional photographer, what's the word I'm looking for here, is let's just say the professionalism or the oh gosh, I'm stumped here, Rosemary.
Okay. I can see a difference in the quality of a professional photograph. I think I can. I can see the difference between a really solid, good amateur photographer's images versus that of a trained professional photographer. Somehow the interplay of the light, and I know your forte is playing with light. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's one aspect of what I do, and certainly capturing a good image is important. But I think there's another component about a professional photography. If I can just add on to this,
sure,
is a sense of professionalism. I don't know if a weekend warrior is going to guarantee their work to their clients like I do. I don't know if that weekend warrior is going to sit down and work closely with that client to actually make sure they've got all the information. So there's there's certainly the visual component that's important, but there's also a professionalism in the back end, and how you treat your clients and how professional you are, following through with saying what you're going to do. It amazes me that I have clients who call me and said, "Oh, I tried phoning a few other photographers, but they never got back to me." And so that sense of professionalism, I think, is also a key component to someone who is a full-time professional photographer who understands the importance of professionalism in a commercial world. Does that make sense?
It makes complete sense, especially in the world of entrepreneurs. We've got creative people, and then we've got business people. And everybody has one of those areas is marginally stronger than the other. Even if we're a very well-balanced person, the creative side rules a little better, or the business side rules a little better. And unfortunately, sometimes they're not as balanced as they ought to be. Go ahead.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, I've worked with a couple of photographers who've assisted me, or we worked together on a project who have more creativity in their pinky than I do in my entire body. Mm-hmm. However, they don't seem to have the ability to put a business together or respond to their clients in a meaningful and respectful manner, or in a professional manner, and they're not able to put a business together. Though they are able to take amazing images, they are not able to sort of comprehend or complete that sort of business component that is equally as important as actually taking good-looking images. So it is a bit of a balance of both, which I think is something that I really like about photography, or love about photography, is that I love the marketing and the networking connections and the business end of it, as well as creating the images, so it has that sort of lovely balance of creativity with, right brain, left brain type of thinking, which is, that's what really appeals to me, I think, most about photography.
Yes, that's exactly what it is right brain, left brain balance. And that's very hard to say very quickly. You should try it sometime. Anyway, but I digress. So was it... Were you, even before you started, were you artistic? Before you, did you like drawing? Did you like creating images of your own at all? What was it that drew you? I know you took the class, but to take a class and to really buy into the class and find out that it's fantastic means that some portion of it really drew you to take it in the first place, unless it was that all the other electives were full.
No, I think perhaps I took it in grade 12 because I thought it might be a bit of an easier class, but I did have some interest in it too.
Yes, there's that one too. By the way, yeah. You do know that I was a teacher, right? Was I creative? Well, my mother would probably say so. As a child, my drawings were I'm not a good drawer, and I'm not a good writer. What appealed to me so much about photography was just being able to capture that one moment and seeing how light played with the negative, and being able to produce these moments. And I think we're all captured by images whether it's looking at old family photos or something in a magazine. But I had a dear friend of mine in Victoria, where I was living at the time, where photography really took off. He bought me my first camera, and we would go out sort of on nights and days and just go do some shooting. And it was so much fun to do that and see the results. And I had been doing that for a number of years, and this was probably about when I was 25 years old, and I was planning on, I was younger, sorry.
86. What does that make? Yeah, it's 22. So it was in 1986 that I did a bicycle tour through Europe for 3.5 months. And I did take my camera with me, and I didn't really have a plan for what I was going to do when I came back. And I felt I needed to do something, and I loved photography, and there was a photography school in Victoria, and I ended up applying and being accepted in a 10-month program at that photography school, which is sort of one of the next phases of my photography career. So it was an interesting experience. There's a whole other story involved in that photography school, but it was an interesting experience, and I got to learn a lot from them. And from there, sorry, go ahead. You had a question?
Well, I was just going to say, Dirk, you cannot throw down the gauntlet of, oh, that was an interesting story, and then not at least give me something, because inquiring minds need to know.
All right. It's so I mean. The school is now no longer around, but I'm going to not mention names anyways. The school had its challenges. While I was there, the school, half my class had already quit about 5-6 months into the program because they were dissatisfied with the program, and they weren't. They were looking at taking the school to court. I believe one of the instructors was being taken to court for sexual harassment. So there was some interesting things going on at the school at this time, and I was still kind of on the fence whether I was going to leave the school or whether I was going to continue. And there was an article that had recently been published in the local paper there, touting how wonderful this school was to photography students, and a lot of our students had a hard time reading this article because it was sort of flying in the face of all the crap that we were dealing with. And I sort of at a party said, "Oh, I think I should go talk to the writer and have them write about the students' perspective on the school." That apparently got back to the administration of the school, and I was subsequently let go from the school about 4 months before the end of the program, which was interesting, and it was a challenging time. However, there was a lot of really great things that came out of that. They didn't want to explain why I was being let go, and my friend that I had mentioned earlier, who got me my first camera, I think we were a month or two after I had been let go of the school, and he says, "Dirk, we gotta get this dealt with." And my friend Don, he put on a suit and he grabbed a briefcase, and we went charging up to the school, and I introduced him as my associate, and we were here to settle the matter. And I was demanding to have my marks that I had. I wanted a letter explaining why I was being let go, and I wanted a check for the remainder portion of my tuition. And though we never stated that he was my lawyer, we just said he was my associate, and somehow the suit and tie and the briefcase seemed to sway them enough to give for them to give me what I wanted. So it was a funny little hoax, which paid off. And my friend Don and I have a good laugh about that all the time. There was a time in the meeting. I love this moment. It's such a great moment. There was a time in the meeting where the administrator we're talking, and Don is sitting behind me, and I'm sitting at the desk, and the administrator's at the other side of the desk. And so he looks sort of past me and goes, "So excuse me, Mr. Knight, what is it exactly that you do?" And I'm starting to sweat because Don doesn't lie. He's not going to lie. And I'm slowly looking back at him, and I'm thinking, "Oh no, we're done for." And he said the most brilliant thing. He said, Well, Mr. Administrator, what I do isn't really important right now. I'm here to help represent Dirk to make sure that claims here go as they should. And I'm just like, and with that, the meeting was done, and we had everything we wanted. And
Wow.
and it was a fun little moment. Yes.
No guts, no glory, Dirk.
Yeah, it was fun, and we're still great friends today. And one of the other great things that happened from that is within a week or two of that incident, a colleague told me that that Rob Desterbay, who was Victoria's leading commercial photographer, was looking for an assistant, and I went and applied and got the job, and I worked with Rob Desterbay for over 3 years, and that's really where my learning came in, and working with light, learning how to deal with clients, including all the silly one-liners that you need to have in your repertoire to help put people at ease and relax, and so you can take a successful picture of looking someone relaxed and happy. So I cherish the time that I had with Rob Desterbay. He was a great mentor. We're still good friends. He's since retired, and he asked me if I wanted to take over his business in Victoria, but I was a little too settled here in Nanaimo to want to pick up and move to Victoria. But so it's funny how the world kind of how things happen, where supposedly getting kicked out of a photography school and all the stress that goes with that. Within a few months, I was working for the best photographer in Victoria. So kind of cool.
That's quite a story, Dirk. Dirk, you mentioned something that piqued my interest a little bit, and that was that your very respected mentor needed an assistant. Now, I don't know, is photography a team sport?
Oh, absolutely. I have the great fortune of either building a team or I have a team that I can call upon that make my job much easier and allow us to produce a stronger and better image. So I have a regular assistant who works with me named Paul Kovac. He's been with me for about 4 years, and he has his own talents. He sees things that I don't see. He's great with people. He's able to anticipate my needs, which means we can get the work done faster, which ends up making the client happy, because if we're billing them on an hourly basis, if we can get the work done quicker with Paul helping me, then it'll save the client money. And when I also have people working I have a gal working in my office, and at times I may need to hire a makeup artist or a hairstylist or a food stylist or whatever it might be, or a stager if I'm doing a home. So all those different people that I call are so helpful and useful, because we are all working together to be able to create a stronger image for the client. And I love the fact that I don't have to look at how the clothes and the hair and the makeup is sitting on the model, because we've got the makeup artist, the stylist, and the hair gal all looking at those things, and I'm able just to concentrate on the lighting and the composition and the posing of the client, say in a fashion shoot. So having an awesome team just adds the extra awesome on the awesome sauce.
Okay, now, awesome. Once again, you have said something that has made my little ears perk up and say what? Did you really say a food stylist?
Yes, I did. And my good friend Hillary of Sea Salt Food Catering, she is a fabulous cook and caterer, and she has an incredible knack for food styling. And so what that means, it's kind of like a hairdresser, makeup artist, and a food stylist for food. So they are preparing the food so that it looks and works better as a photograph. And they will, and Hillary is also brilliant because she has all these like baskets and accoutrements that you can outline or put around the food that help complete the image. And so if I don't like to photograph food unless I have a food stylist working with me, because they are just brilliant at it. Again, it allows me just to focus more on the lighting and the composition, and the food stylist is the one who sort of preps all the food up for the photograph. They're very valuable, and I'm so thankful to have Hillary in my team.
Does taking photographs of food form a large part of your business?
It's a growing part of my business. It's something that I really love doing. My favorite type of photo jobs is when I'm working with a team, because I as sort of formally mentioned, I get to focus more just on the details. And I did some work recently for a steelhead salmon farm, and we did some shots of the steelhead sort of completed and cooked, as well as sashimi that you might use for sushi. That's a hard word for me to say. And try saying sushi section 3 times fast. There's a good time for you. So I have been doing more and more, and it's starting to be a larger part of my business. And I think partially because there's just not as many people doing it, and I love it. I just love doing food photography, and the great thing with working with Hillary is some food stylists will add things to the food that you won't be able to eat it afterwards. But Hillary likes to keep things as natural as possible, so there tends to be a nice little feast after the shooting's done, which is always good too.
I was going to say, not only do you get paid, you get fed.
Yeah, it's not bad.
And you don't have to make the fish smile with your.
It's true. You can just kind of glue it in place, so to speak.
There are photographs that are huge. I mean, some photographs, I can't imagine how, there's panoramic photographs and whatnot, but there is the world's largest color photograph that I would love you to talk about.
Awesome. That's another great story. So I mentioned Rob Desterbay, the photographer in Victoria that I worked with for 3 years. He was approached by a graphic designer out of Ottawa and the art director. And they were putting the finishing touches on the Museum of Modern Civilization, which is just outside of Ottawa in Hull, Quebec. And they were looking for a backdrop to go in the main pavilion. And the main pavilion is probably one of the largest open spaces in the museum. And they have 5 representations of coastal Indian homes in this pavilion, and they were looking for a backdrop that would be behind the homes, and that backdrop was to be a huge strand of trees. So they hired Rob Desterbay, and I went along with him. We spent a week touring the northern tip of Vancouver Island and the Queen Charlotte Islands, looking for the perfect beachfront to take pictures that would then become the backdrop for this pavilion. And myself and Rob and the art director and the graphic designer and the pilot were all squished in this helicopter, and I was usually right in the middle, so I had 2 big guys on either side of me. And we would pop down to a beach, and if we thought it was good, we would photograph it extensively for about 2 hours. And I was on the front image of every roll of film with my long hippie hair, and with a color card and a gray card and a chalkboard saying what roll number this was and where we were and the time. And they, from all those images, they chose Nasparty Bay, which is on the northern tip of Vancouver Island, as the backdrop. And we took it's called a 2¼ Hasselblad. The image is 2¼ inches square, and it was taken on the Hasselblad. And that image from the Nasparty Bay was made to be 65 feet tall by 265 feet wide. And it is, and what they did, which is really kind of interesting, is they sort of made several panels from the same image, and then they would have one panel slightly behind the other, say maybe 6 to 8 inches or so, and have it slightly offset so that while you're walking along the pavilion, you could almost peer into the trees, and it was slightly lit from behind. So it's quite an extensive project that they took to do this. And at the time, I don't know if it is anymore. We're talking the late '80s here. It was the world's largest color photograph that my former boss took. So it was an incredible experience. Although I think at the end of it all, I was happy to be finished it. But I look back at that as a very fond moment.
I can't imagine taking a week to shoot one image. This is dedication.
Well, and that's, I guess they wanted to have lots to choose from. I think we ended up photographing probably 5 or 6 beaches during that time, and it was up to the discretion of the art director as to which one they wanted. So they would have 6 beaches, and from there choose which ones they were going to manufacture into that large photograph. So it was a great experience, and I've probably got a couple minutes to my 15 minutes of fame, so to speak.
That's a wonderful story. You've got another one that I'd like to hear about, I think, and that's about the cover of the Gateway magazine.
Oh, So I've been very fortunate to work with the Chamber of Commerce here in Nanaimo, and they work in conjunction with the Nanaimo News Bulletin. And they put out annually a business magazine called The Gateway. And the Chamber was celebrating their 125th anniversary. And the title of this was going to be, looking back, looking forward. And it was in talking with the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, we came up with the concept of photographing, doing the cover photo in the museum, in the Nanaimo Museum, where they have a retail space that looks like it's from the turn of the century. And we thought this would be a great backdrop. Seeing that it features retail, it features the past, it sort of encompassed all those aspects of what the Chamber magazine was incorporating. So we had everything all set. We had the day set up. We had a model lined up to do it, and Paul, my assistant, who I mentioned earlier, and I need to preface my assistant Paul. I call him my terrorist-looking Santa Claus because he's got a long beard, and so he kind of could either fall into a Santa Claus look or whatever. Anyways, I don't know why I mentioned that, but Paul's a great character. We're setting up, and we're all ready to go. Lights are set, and the model shows up. And between the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce and the model and the curator at the museum and myself, we all kind of gapped on what the model was going to wear for the shoot, because it was a period piece, right? So it needed to be considered. And we all kind of like, oh my God, we kind of forgot. So going back to my shoe cobbler, or my, it was a challenge, not a problem, right? And so the model saying, "Oh, I'm not a prima donna or anything, but this is ridiculous," and he walks out. And so now we don't have a model. And Kim and I are sort of looking at each other, and our eyes both look up at Paul because he sort of had this shirt that would have worked, and Paul sort of got a sense of what was going down the pipe. And he says, "Oh, no, that's not what I mean." He says, "Oh, come on, Paul." He says, "Oh, no, I'm not doing it." He says, "Come on, Paul, I'll buy you a case of beer." And he says, "Okay, I'll do it." So, and it ended up being perfect. Paul with his beard, and he has these round specs, and we were able to find some old suspenders that worked perfect for the shot. And yeah, I think the shot turned out better with Paul being in it than had the model been in it. And funny thing, Paul was, who was so reluctant. I think as soon as that magazine came out, he picked up like 30 copies and gave it away to his friends and mailed some to his family away. And so he was very proud of the image as well. And it was a lot of fun. We produced a great image, and getting back to that thing with the shoe cobbler, it's a challenge and not a problem, right? So it worked out great.
Well, and he got his 5 minutes of fame, and you added to your 15, and the cobbler the relationship there became even stronger. It was a win-win-win.
It was. I talk about that photo shoot often, and I think sometimes that's one of the things that I really like about photography is sometimes you have to be spontaneous and just kind of go with the flow and see what opportunity brings. And sometimes those opportunities are better than what you could have anticipated. So, but I guess that's life too.
Truly. You had mentioned earlier, Dirk, that you generally work on the commercial side of photography rather than the individual portraits and whatnot. But still, in business, portraits are important.
Absolutely.
And so what's the difference then between setting up a business portrait shoot and something in the more familially set up? What's the difference between the two?
That's a really good question, Rosemary. Family portraits are something that, you grab a picture with your family or yourself or with friends, and that's ideally some art that you're going to be hanging on your wall and something that you can reflect on a regular basis. With commercial headshots, as I call them, or business portraits, we see a lot of these. We see a lot of these every day. If you go on LinkedIn, or if you go onto a website and you want to find out who Dr. Smith is, we're going to see an image of that person. And oftentimes that image is our first introduction as to who that person is. And so business portraits are really an important component in regards to introducing yourself to the community, letting people know who you are, and also the sort of demeanor, and we already begin to get a sense of who this person is, whether we can take them seriously or not, or whatever. We'll get a sense of who that person is through that image, for good or for bad, for that matter, if that makes sense. Like if we had a bad picture of, say, a lawyer or something like that, then that image may reflect poorly on that lawyer and may not get as many inquiries into jobs, because the picture that they have doesn't instill a sense of confidence on the person looking onto it as to how competent they are, how influential, or how friendly they may be.
That's true.
Does that make sense?
Can you imagine a picture of a judge laughing uproariously at some foolish joke?
Yeah, I mean, no, you're right. That's not going to work well. In fact, I photographed a judge a few years ago, and it's funny how they have that look. They know that look that they need to give for the photograph, and he was a great subject. I mean, we in between the photos we were laughing our heads off, but during the shoot it was like, it's about passing on that message to the viewers. Is this a person that you're going to trust? Is this a person you feel is going to be able to do the job properly? And those sorts of things can be conveyed within a photograph.
I have to tell you a tiny little story.
Yeah, please do.
I was, as I said, a teacher, and I have this very expressive face. My grade 12 theater students once had gotten the hang of the look that I can give people to stop them in their tracks. And one particularly talented and very clever individual saw me, I guess, gearing up for the look, and he stopped me cold, dead in my tracks, when he just he put his hands over his eyes and said, "Don't let her capture, don't look her in the eye, it's the look, it's the look." And ran out of the room screaming. So, but then it was theater class, so that was acceptable.
Absolutely.
But the look is incredibly powerful. But I have a question, and it's a professional question.
Mm-hmm.
In some images, people are looking directly at the camera, saying directly hello to and meeting the eye of whoever is looking at their picture. And in others, it's slightly off kilter, and they're not quite looking back in your eyes. Is there a reason for that?
That's a good question. And are you referring to sort of even business portraits?
Yes.
Yeah, I have one client who they want me to take a picture of them not looking at the camera and then one looking at the camera. And, I personally don't like the idea of not connecting with your viewer. I think it's really important that eyes meet, that there is that connection. To me, if Rosemary, if you and I were in person right now having this conversation, but I'm not, I've got my body slightly turned away from you and I'm not creating that eye contact, it's a lot harder to feel like I'm being sincere when I'm doing that. And I think the same thing happens too in a photograph. I will certainly capture whatever my clients want for an image, and I'll also provide my opinion, my professional opinion is. But I personally don't think it works in a business portrait setting. I mean, if it's something more editorial, I could see it working. But as far as a business portrait, I think it's really important to connect with your audience, and looking at the camera is the best way to do that, I believe.
And what else makes a business portrait?
Well, there's so many important things. Good lighting. Lighting can accentuate positive features or take away features that we don't want to see. Posing is really important. If I'm slouched over or hunched over, it doesn't look nearly as solid as if I'm sitting up straight and presenting a strong posture.
And what about
Sorry?
What about background?
That's a good question, and background can tell already a bit about who we are and what we do in our work. So, if I was photographing, in fact, I photographed that judge, and we photographed him in the courtroom. So one was able to get a sense of already what he was doing. So backdrops can do that. Sometimes people like to have simple backdrops because they want to have, like, say, if I'm photographing a large office of people, they want to have a consistency of the same backdrop, and it's so we'll have like an all-white backdrop, and that makes it easier and more cost-effective for the client too. So the backdrop can play an important role. We don't want it to be busy. We don't want it to be distracting. We want always the focus to be on the subject. We want to be able to see who that person is.
In photography, as in video, does what the person is wearing make a huge difference?
Oh, absolutely. I'm probably one of the few photographers in town who dresses professionally, as if tie and jacket. I think the same goes for in an image. If you're a lawyer and you're showing up in Tommy Bahama shirt and shorts, that's going to attract a different clientele, let's say, than if you're wearing a suit and tie. I think you need to be who you need to be yourself, and you need to wear the clothes that represent you. However, I think they should also represent the work that you do, and also ideally sort of attract the clientele that you want. If you want the Tommy Bahamas clientele, then that's how you're going to dress. If you want a business crowd, then you're going to want to dress in that sort of attire. That you understand what I'm getting at?
I was talking about perhaps solids versus stripes.
I'm sorry.
Do they automatically create a different image?
Oh, absolutely. So that was a good question, and so yeah, I think it's important to stay away from heavy patterns. Don't wear the tie-dye T-shirts you wore back in the 70s, and stick to solid, darker tones. Really, the best thing is to have the face be the brightest thing on the page, and that's where our eye's going to go. So having distracting colors like the background, we want it to be clean and simple and wrinkle-free.
And what about color itself? For business, for headshots, for branding, for business images, do we pay attention to that yellow?
I think as long as the tones go well together, I think again, if you like to wear color, then you should wear color. To me, the focus would be more on just taking away the distractions. If the colors end up being so outrageous that it becomes distracting, then I would suggest toning it down a bit.
Okay. And once again, what is the difference between posing someone? And here's the question I really want to ask you: what do you do as a professional photographer when you are herding cats because you're taking a group shot and someone's smiling, someone's eyes are closed, someone else is licking their lips? Is there a secret sauce that professional photographers use to make it easier for you to get a good group shot?
Yeah, there's a couple things that I do. Larger groups have more challenges. They take a bit more time. It's interesting if you can say things to get people's attention. The other thing I do is I put my camera on a tripod, and what I can do is if, say, there's I take, maybe it's a group of 20, and there are in that I have one shot where 19 of them all look fabulous, but one person has their eyes closed or something. So I can then take that one image and also find another image where that person with their eyes closed has their eyes open, and do this thing in Photoshop where you can kind of swap heads and make it look like everybody's looking at the camera. So that's something that we'll do when we're dealing with larger groups.
This is the world of naughtiness. Let's swap your head.
It's one of the advantages of getting back to our conversation we started with. It's one of the advantages of digital photography. The ability to edit is much greater now, certainly, than it was in film. So, but I do appreciate. Sorry?
Is it terribly time consuming?
It can be. I learned on film, and I like to try and have the images caught in the camera as best I can, so that so I don't have to do as much editing, and which I prefer.
Yes, of course. Dirk, it has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show.
I can't believe it. Hours already gone by.
It has. It's just whooshed on past. And so what I'd like to ask you is, how can people best get a hold of you to fulfill their professional photography needs?
Absolutely. I'm here on the west coast of Vancouver Island. You can contact me at www.haphotography.com. That's my website. Or you can email me at Dirk, D-I-R-K, at haphotography.com. Or you can contact me the old-fashioned way by telephone, by 250-729-5444.
Thank you for being on the show, Dirk. This has been
It was my
absolute education.
Thank you so much, Rosemary. It was great chatting with you. It was lots of fun. Thanks.
You're very welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Rosemary Barnes, the host of Off the Coast Views from Vancouver Island, with guest Dirk Heydemann of HA Photography. Next week on our show, we are going to have an amazing interview with a woman named Angela Thurston, who deals with female sensuality and sexuality and the power of pleasure. This has been an amazing show about photography, something about which I know very little. So I'm very grateful Dirk could be here today. So until next week, enjoy the island life.
Thank you for listening to Off the Coast, Views from Vancouver Island, with host Rosemary Barnes. To book Rosemary as a speaker or speaking coach, or to offer suggestions of extraordinary guests for the show, please visit her website at www.confidentstages.com.